start with that. If you're wondering anything,
Well, I probably should have already, I feel like I'm a little delayed in I'm not taking a lot of initiative with this plan because advising has already passed and I could change my schedule probably, but I have not taken any classes that are like centric to academic librarianship.
mhm.
Um, is that because I talked to a former student who said they were kind of the same boat of like interested in like academic and public libraries, but they took academic libraries but not public libraries, whereas I've taken public libraries but I haven't taken the academic library class. Do you think that like in your area they're looking for certain classes for me to have taken, or is the degree enough?
They're looking for skills. So,
Okay.
like as Dr. Bird said before, the teaching is, of course, at an academic library, the teaching is extremely important. I mean, even if you are a library assistant, students may come up and ask, what, I need sources for this, and could you point me in the right direction? So, that is, I will focus more on those kind of skills, and especially when it comes to community college librarianship, both the public library class and the academic class would be useful because community colleges serve as public libraries in a sense as well, because we do have community users that come in and use our collections. And we do have some of the same issues come up that, will come up in a public library. Like, we may have a homeless patron, or we may have, different people from different walks of life. The students that use community colleges are typically non-traditional students who, are older than the traditional age, and a lot of them are, maybe in a low socioeconomic position. They may be single parents balancing work with school, a full-time job with school. So you've got to be. Could you hold on for just a second? My stepson is upset. I don't know
That's
what's
not.
going on.
So Karen, you're teaching for us, right?
I am. I'm teaching two sections of 200.
Okay. That's that's going to be a fantastic experience
That's what
to bring to an academic position of any kind. Yeah.
I know. I have thought that it would be because like I've been frustrated. Well, I'll tell you later.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But yeah, I was talking about how both of those classes would be useful, and more so than any classes I would focus on skills, just like what we were talking about earlier, the virtual programming skills in general. Um, I would also look at skills like um, like video editing or sound editing. I do a podcast for my library. I haven't done an episode in a while because I've been, you know, um, having to worry about other things. But things like that, deal, producing content in some sort, um, putting out videos, doing flyers, a little bit of graphic design. So um, that's, I guess, the best advice I could give as far as that is when you're taking your classes, you know, really zero in on the skills and think of skills you would like to learn. Um, and, even if it's not tech, really in a class, but, you can, um, you know, just think about ways to get those skills through, watching videos or, asking someone at your internship, hey, could you show me this? That type of thing. Yeah.
That's really helpful because I feel like when I started the program, I actually made a list of like I made a list of skills that I was realizing that I needed to get just from classes. So is great to have this kind of mindset as I think about jobs.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, did you have another question?
So Nicole, I have a question for you.
Hmm.
So when you were first looking for your job, um, what um, how did you go about it?
Huh.
What what were you looking for? Maybe walk us through the process.
Okay, so when I was looking for my job, both the job I have now and the job that I had at Coastal Carolina is another community college that I worked at before, Wake. Um, I was looking for something that would build onto the previous experience I had in community colleges, because before coming into community colleges, I had teaching experience in community colleges, working, teaching in the developmental English and reading program. So I knew I wanted to stay in community colleges, and I, was looking for something in state. So, that was a criteria. And I was looking for something that, again, would help me still utilize my teaching skills. So the public services position I had at Coastal was a lot of teaching. Even the reference position I had at Guilford, that started out as an internship, was teaching, and then now I'm an instructional services librarian, and that's all I do is teach. So I look for something, to utilize my skills that was in the geographic area that I wanted. Um, um, of course, of course, salary is important. Um, and for me, I always was curious and wondered about public libraries as well. But one reason why I've stuck with community colleges and academic libraries is because in my experience, they do pay a little bit more. So, that's just, the reality of it. That is a concern. Um, so those were some of the things that were important to me when I was, looking for a position.
So you worked at UTCC for a little bit?
Yes, I worked at Guilford Tech for about 9 months before I moved on to Coastal Carolina. Yeah.
What do you think was what do you think helped you the most, or what did you gain most from your time at UNCG in the MLIS program?
What I gained most, I think, was the internship experience, because I got assigned to Guilford Tech, and just having that hands-on experience in the library was very helpful. The reference class that Dr. Bird says she's teaching now, that was very helpful. I use I kept all of my textbooks, and I do reference those at times. But what I learned in that reference class, they taught me how to build the research guides, which I'm building a lot of research guides right now because of COVID. So that was a very useful class as well. And I'm trying to think of Dr. I know she's moved on to another school, but Dr. Rebecca Morris, had a class. I don't remember the name of it, but it was a class that was incorporated a lot of technology and digital storytelling. And, she exposed us to a lot of different tools to create lessons and content. That was a very helpful class as well. I do use stuff from that class.
Probably 635. Did you take that one, Karen?
No, I'm taking community informatics 668 for my tech class. But I feel like from this conversation, I'm thinking, what am I going to take?
If they open another section of 635, you might consider taking that.
Yeah, because like earlier when I was talking about the video, like all of the like media or the content creating type skills, you are introduced to a lot of that in that particular class.
Okay. I had, like, when I was taking the 620 class, I had Dr. Velez. We did like an instructional video where we would do like a screencast and kind of you could edit it and make a video like instructing someone how to do something. And I
Mhm.
thought that class was like that assignment was really beneficial because people are looking all the time looking for how-to videos.
Mhm.
And it might the stuff that we have in the library might not be accessible if like we don't make those videos.
Right.
And I went to a conference a couple of years ago, and somebody was talking about how she makes those on the fly, those screencasting videos, because somebody will email her and say, "How can I find this?" And so she'll do the actual search on like a little screencasting video, and then send it to them, showing the exact search so that they can't get it wrong.
Yeah.
So, but usually we try to do something more generic. But I was like, wow, that must take a lot of time. But she said, no, it takes me 2 or 3 minutes, and it really shows them, exactly what to do because it with their topic in mind. So then they don't have that barrier uh, to how well, this doesn't have anything to do with my topic, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I imagine that with practice, you also get better at knowing exactly what to say, so you're not saying too much.
right.
What type of live guides have you made?
Um,
Or
I've made recently. I've been making a lot of lip guides for English classes. I'm on the diversity committee for Wake Tech Library, so I help out with that committee with a lib guide about diversity. So we've got a different tab for each month where we have resources, ebooks, books, events, articles, all that about a particular. Like this month is Native American History Month, so we're collecting a lot of resources about that. I think next month is Human Rights Month, so that lib guide is one I've done a lot of. I think I did it. I did one for literature class recently. Um, Mainly it's been English classes. A lot of stuff, a lot of the English classes have been asking for the lib guides.
you mentioned that you taught at a community college prior.
Hmm.
What did you teach?
I taught the developmental English and reading classes. And I think I taught all three because, well, they've changed the program, but when I taught it, it was 3 levels, 70, 80, and 90, and I taught pretty much all three of those levels. So,
And did you know that you were interested in librarianship prior to teaching, or did that kind of like, how did you develop that interest?
so well, from the beginning, I started off in college as a journalism major, and then I switched over to education because I just felt like I wanted something more, that was broader and where I could work more with literature because that was really where I was, where my interest was going. And so I thought, well, I'll go into English and get the education credit so that I could teach. And um, so, I've taught some other places before the community college, but the community college was where I got the most of the experience with teaching. And I didn't know that I wanted to be a librarian, but it was weird because I was sitting on the couch with my dad one day, and I think he saw a newspaper article or something for the ACE program, the ACE scholarship, and he told me about it, and I looked into it, and it was something that I sounded like I wanted to do, and so I applied, and the rest, as they say, is history, and um, I really feel like librarianship and journalism are like cousins because both of them have to do with making information accessible and being objective and not putting your input into the information that people are asking you to get for them and make accessible to them. So I think that, that thread is also, one thing that made it easy for me to transition into librarianship, from that.
I feel like from conversations with people about how they've gotten into it, a lot of paths kind of can line up well with librarianship because it's, it includes a lot of different activities. And so, because you mentioned journalism, I'm actually teaching a lecture tomorrow on fake news, which I don't know, I picked election day, I felt appropriate. We're not really talking, it's not super, it's very generic. But I guess, do you guys do any type of instruction on like how to tell if, the information that we read on the internet is reliable, trustworthy?
We have a LibGuide about that. And when I teach my library orientation classes, I do cover that somewhat. I do cover that a little bit. I can't do a whole lot of it because I have to stick to what the instructor asks for. But when I teach about vetting sources, and I use I teach the CRAP method, I do touch on that. I think ProQuest had this free series of classes that they offered this past week, or last week, that was all about news media or media literacy. That is an interest of mine, especially since, we've been going through this fake news era. But yeah, that's, we do touch on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting because a lot of my students are choosing to write papers on misinformation or fake news because it's grown so much. Whereas even previous semesters when I was an assistant, the topics were different. So it's kind of interesting how it can shape everything. What's been the hardest aspect of the job?
The hardest aspect of the job for me, I don't know. I mean, I've pretty much, it's all been pretty enjoyable to me. I guess the hardest part is being at the desk sometimes and having multiple demands, or sometimes, especially in academic libraries, the library is kind of treated as the general hub. Everybody comes to the library for everything, even if it's, if it's financial aid or if it's IT or if it's something else that we don't handle, they come to the library to, to get that. And sometimes it's difficult to, kind of reroute people different places because they might get frustrated that they're having to go yet another place. So, maybe, that aspect of it, maybe, sometimes dealing with different personalities, maybe a little different, a little difficult. I don't really like when you have to give a student citation or something like that because they're, not following the library policy. We're kind of lax about that. Not lax, but we're trying to be understanding right now during the COVID, except when it comes to the mask, if they have to have a mask on. But I think that's probably a hard part too, because I'm not a confrontational person. So I really hate having to, write up a student or anything like that. So I guess that would be the hard part.
What kind of citation do you give them?
Not a citation, but it's like a code of conduct warning. It's like it's like a code of conduct warning that Wake Tech gives out, and you have to go see the dean. You have to go see the not the dean of students, and meet
Wow,
with him, and they have a trial and all this kind of stuff. So, um, yeah,
big consequences.
so that would be, I guess, the hardest part.
Did you ever do that before COVID? I mean, what kind of things would prompt such a action?
So a big thing is a lot of times it's hard because sometimes it's small things that just kind of get escalated into something bigger than it needs to be. So a big thing is IDs. For some reason, students are very resistant to having their student IDs, and it's you know they'll come in without it, or they'll try to sneak in without it, and then when it gets discovered, then first time they're just told to leave. If they do it a second time, then that's when they get the write up.
Mm.
And so stuff like that, or if they, you know, usually it's something like that. If they're, we have a early college program, which is the high school students, and they sometimes they get in trouble for typical high school stuff, like you know, horsing around downstairs, or talking loud, talking too loudly, or and it's not like the first thing. It's like it's got to be something that they continually do. It's not like they just every little move they get something, you
Mhm.
know. So
So do you serve the early college students? Do you teach them or?
they're integrated in with the like English 111. The base level English is usually the classes that they were in that I would teach.
Mhm,
So because like I said, since they're integrated in with those classes, I do teach them.
mhm.
Yeah.
Do you see a difference? Can you tell?
Sometimes I can tell the difference between an early college student and a regular college student because they're acting like they'll have the demeanor of a teenager. Um, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes that some of them are very mature, and you can't you can't really tell the difference. Yeah.
Boy, that even extends the age range that you have to deal with.
Yeah. So
Mm,
they start at 14. I think
mm,
they're 14. Yeah, they start at 14, and then they go to what, like 18. And then the regular students go from 18 and beyond.
mhm.
So, yeah. So, we do have special like as far as early college is concerned, like we do have the young adult collection for them, and so we do have specific resources for them, and there's a young adult book club that's for everybody, but it has them in mind.
Mm.
Um,
Is it popular?
you said, is it popular?
Mhm.
Well, it just started really during COVID, so it's kind of building up momentum.
Great. Neat.
But yeah.
It's really neat. I'm actually interested in working with a population, so I didn't really think about how, depending on the community college, that could be.
Yeah, most of the community colleges have early college. Everyone that I've worked at has the early college.
Okay.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
when I was at COVID, not COVID. What am I saying? When I was at Coastal, they got their early college while I was there. It started up while I was there.
Mm.
So I was able to welcome in the first class, help with welcoming in the first early college class at Coastal. Yeah.
So, what's next for you? Do you, um, you think you'll be at Wake Tech for a while, or?
I'll be at Wake Tech for the foreseeable future. I don't plan
Okay.
on going anywhere
Yeah.
anytime soon. I thought that for a while, I thought I wanted to look into moving to a 4-year school and seeing what that was like. But I really have come to really like community colleges. And so, I'm comfortable with the community college, and I feel like, this is where I'd like to stay for a while. Um, it's just, I really like the concept just in general of the community college, of how, it's designed to just, to take anybody who wants to do the work, to take them and just like really give them a lot of assistance and a lot of support to move them up, um, to, where they want to be, if they want to get a higher paying job, if they want to change careers, or if they want to transfer over to a 4-year school. I just really like the concept of how community college makes education accessible to people that normally, might not have had that access.
There's one outcome of the election that would probably help community colleges quite a bit.
Mm. Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I know my brother, he went to a community college. It was a really great place for him. So this is a good, there's a lot of opportunities.
I was talking to somebody yesterday about there's only like 2 or 3 places that you can learn how to fix appliances. So there's a huge shortage of people who like fix dishwashers and refrigerators and things like that. And people have been home so much with COVID that their dishwashers are breaking down, and so that was always the part of community colleges that I liked, is that you could have a career in a couple of years if you
Yeah.
wanted to go in that direction. And I've seen studies where it permanently affects you, your income range for, like almost immediately after community college, your income goes up. And from there, it's your growth potential is quite high.
Hmm.
So it really does give people
Yeah.
a strong step into the future.
There was a recently, the oldest graduate, the oldest person, well, the oldest living graduate of Wake Tech. She recently passed away, and she was an African American lady, and she talked about how Wake Tech, which at the time Wake Tech was called Holding, it had a different name, but she talked about how, at that time, most of the community colleges were founded in the 60s during, the segregation and that type of thing. And she talked about how, um, the Wake Tech was one place where she could go and where everybody was kind of on the same, is on the same level. And everybody, even in that environment of segregation, everybody at that school helped each other and encouraged each other. And I just thought that was just really unique you know, for that to exist even in that time period. And
Right.
she was, she was just really thankful. I think she was in a nursing program. She was just really thankful of, for having that opportunity through the community college. So yeah, that was, and if I find that they had the interview with her, if I find it, I'll forward it to you, Dr. Bird, so maybe
Oh,
you.
that'd be great. I would
Yeah.
like to see that. Yeah.
I thought of a question. So I guess what is the structure like working at a community college? Like, who do you report to? Like, who do you interact with?
So it's different at different schools, because like, if you're at a smaller school versus a bigger school, like Wake is the largest school. So um, on my campus, like there's how many campuses does Wake Tech have? There's like about seven campuses. So on my campus, I work on one of the bigger campuses, and there's a campus librarian, and the campus librarian is like the director of that campus library. And so I report to her, she's my supervisor, and pretty much everybody, all of the other library staff report to those campus librarians. And then above her, then there's a dean of libraries. And so that's how Wake Tech is set up. But if you're at a smaller school, then it might just be you and the library director, or when I was at Guilford, it was me, and then at the time they didn't have this position filled, but it would have been a public services librarian, which was kind of like the assistant director, and then the director. So there's different structures, like I said, depending on what school you're at.
Okay, thank you.
And the libraries report to different structures as well. Sometimes they're considered academic staff, kind of like the faculty, but other places they're considered more support staff, like the advisors and people like that. So student services
Student
staff.
services, yeah.
Yeah.
At Wake Tech, we're considered staff. We're support services.
Yeah.
And pretty much every school where I've taught or where I've been a librarian, we're considered staff. But it's kind of like at Coastal, we were staff, but we were still able to go to the faculty senate or the all faculty meetings, since we do teach. They would, allowed us to be there so that we would be up on what was going on in the courses.
That's neat.
Trying to think if there's anything else to.
What professional associations do you belong to, Nichole?
I belong to NCCCLA, which is the North Carolina Community College Library Association. In the past, I've belonged to NCLA, which is of course, the North Carolina Library Association. Those are the two main ones that I've been a part of. That's pretty much, as far as organizations, is pretty much what I've been a part of. One thing that I wanted to make sure that I learned when I was at Coastal, and I still get a little bit of it now, is the budget, because the budget determines, of course, a lot of things in terms of what resources you'll have, what databases you'll have. And so, that determines the tools that you'll have to work with, to teach or to do, whatever your function is. So at the smaller school, at Coastal, I was able to sit down with the director and see how she was allocating the money that she was getting. And then here at Wake, the student, there's different grants that you can apply for on campus. So I was trying to put together some programming, and I applied for a grant to put on the program. And so I had to put together a budget to send to them to be able to, ask for the amount of money that was needed. So that's another, going back to the skills, that's another thing I would say you need to have is an awareness of budgeting and, how that plays through with, how that's going to affect your position.
Did we talk about that at all in the program?
Budgeting, a little. I feel like it was mentioned a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the panels that we had, some of the guests would mention that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would recommend. I asked, like when I was at Coastal, I asked the director, "Can I just sit down with you and see how that looks?" So that I can just, I may never be in charge of a budget, but I just want to at least be aware of it, and how that works. Because you don't want to, the other good thing about that is you don't want to constantly request stuff that is always out of the budget,
Yeah.
because that makes you seem like, kind of out of touch with what the reality of the organization is. So,
Do you do any collection development?
I just joined the collection development committee at Wake, so I will be doing a lot more collection development. Right now, we're focusing on ebooks, because of the times. But when it seems like every library job I've ever had, the first thing I've had to do is weeding. Is be a part of a big weeding project. So yeah, I've done a lot of collection development on that end of things.
Yeah.
So it's like I got done with the big weeding projects at Coastal, and then I get to Wake, and the first thing you can start weeding now. So I'm like, okay.
I need to weed my own library, but
Yeah.
it's a different scale.
Yeah. It's been a dream of mine to catalog my own personal library. I don't know if I would do LC or some elaborate system, but I would love to catalog my own library and have some sort of online catalog that I can pull up my titles through that. So I might work on that one day.
There are apps for that. I don't remember because you can do it on Goodreads, but some people don't like Goodreads. And then there's another one where you can keep track of your libraries.
Library thing used to be
maybe, or I don't remember the name. It was like a shorthand of something.
Yeah.
What's your favorite book?
I have a lot of favorite books.
Yes.
I like poetry. I write poetry, so I like to read a lot of poetry. My favorite poet is Ntozake Shange, and my favorite book of hers is her most famous one. It's got a long title, For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Was Enough. So I really like that one. And the book that we're going to read for the next young adult book club is called The Poet X. It's a verse novel.
Oh, yeah.
And
I love that.
Yeah, that book was really good. I like that one too.
So I listened to the audiobook, which Elizabeth Acevedo, she reads it herself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so good.
Yeah. I think she got a national book award for that.
I know she got some award. I don't remember which
one.
Yeah. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
So if you had one big piece of advice for Karen and anybody else who watches the recording, what would it be?
My biggest piece of advice would be to don't be afraid to ask if you don't know something. I ask every job that I've gone on, I ask a lot of questions. And sometimes I feel like, might be getting on people's nerves, but I'd rather get on people's nerves than do something incorrectly or tell somebody something wrong or lead somebody in a wrong direction. So, ask a lot of questions. Use one thing I've tried to do is integrate some of my interests outside of librarianship into librarianship. That's why I do the podcast. I've been interested in podcasting, and that's the way to get even though I'm not in journalism, I'm still interested in media and writing and that type of thing. And so I've found, through that, I found a way to do that within the library to help the library, but then still keep those skills up. Just don't be afraid to be creative. I mean, always throw your ideas out there. It might sound, crazy but you never know. It might be something that students really get a lot out of, or that your patrons, really, really, it's really helpful to them. And, if you're afraid to do things that are new, you never know who's missing out on that, that new thing that you have that only you can contribute.
And I just like to
I'll take that part.
I just like to add to that, when you're going through the interview process, have questions as well. Um, that's a hard thing for people to bring to the interview process, but better to have questions than to not than to act like you're not interested. People
Yeah.
sometimes think that you don't have questions because you're not interested, and